Welcome back to Commercial Breaks with Miss Education. I'm Miss Education. All right, so since 2021, um, I've been attending these DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion trainings, um, and it was something that I noticed um, that I was constantly being told that I was oppressed. Um, I noticed that us as Black folks would get up and speak about our oppressions, and the next person would get up and try to outmatch them and give something that's even more depressing and more oppressive. The next person gets up and their story makes everyone cry, right? And we keep doing this oppression Olympics, trying to get the gold medal, right? And I was like, why? Why are we doing this? Why do we sit there and re-traumatize ourselves? Like, why would we want to do that? And so I was buying into it. I was like, yeah, I'm oppressed. I'm oppressed. I'm oppressed. The system, I'm oppressed. And one day someone asked me, a white person was like, so you're oppressed? I said, yes, I'm oppressed. And they said, well, can you give me an example of your oppression? Yeah, no. Actually, I couldn't give you an example of my oppression through the system. I don't know. Oh my gosh. And so when I started, I continued to attend these DEI trainings. And when the oppression question came up, I raised my hand. I said, no, I'm not oppressed. Oh my goodness. The reactions I get when I tell people I'm not oppressed. And the biggest reaction are from my own. Like, Black people want me to be oppressed. They're like, you are oppressed. You're a woman. So that's an oppression. You're Black. That's an oppression. There's certain ceilings you can't break. There's certain things you can't do. You know, when you walk into a store, you're being followed by the cops or the security guard or someone just following you. You get stopped for, dumb stuff when you're driving. Our schooling is worse. We don't get the same education. We don't get the same materials. So yes, you are oppressed. And I said, no, I'm not oppressed. My Blackness hasn't stopped me yet. I by the grace of God, I've done what I've wanted to do. I became who I was supposed to be. I was not oppressed. I was blessed. And I'm not taking away anyone's oppression. And I'm not saying that oppression is not real. No, at all. I'm not saying that at all. And I know individuals who are oppressed. All I'm saying is that at this moment, I'm not oppressed. And for some reason, people cannot accept that. They're like, you are oppressed. You are. I'm like, no, right? And so what I do is I read the definition of oppression. Let me get that, the definition of oppression. Okay, hold on, my phone. Okay, definition of oppression. Prolonged, cruel or unjust treatment or control. The state of being subject to unjust treatment or control. Mental pressure or distress These are the definition of oppression. I'm trying to tell them that by the grace of God, I am not living in a prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment or control. I am not in a state of being subject to unjust treatment or control. And I have no mental pressure or distress. So I am not oppressed by the grace of God. I my life isn't perfect. So what I realize, there's situations that arise. There are restrictions that arise in my life. But they're not oppression. So in order to be oppressed, you must be restricted, right? Oppression is a matter of restriction. I get that. But you can be restricted and not oppressed. So again, to be oppressed, you must be restricted. But one can be restricted and not oppressed. So yes, have I had restrictions in my life? Most def. But I was never oppressed. My husband, I was talking to him, he's like, Jen, he wasn't feeling me. And then he made this example. He's like, maybe you can share this example with me. He was like, a baby elephant in the circus, I guess when they're training them, they have like a small peg. They keep a rope, I guess, around their necks or whatever, and it's attached to a small peg. And the elephant at that time cannot move, right? Because the peg is stronger. But as the elephant gets older and bigger, they keep the same peg. They don't change that peg because that elephant is trained to think that it's weaker than that peg. That is oppression. What I'm trying to tell you is I'm that elephant, and I realize that I'm stronger than the peg. I'm not oppressed. I have restrictions, right? At that time, that with that elephant, that pin was just a restriction. And then we have this thing with this DEI thing where, especially as educators, we want to perpetuate this and feed this narrative to our children, our young boys, our women, like our little girls. We're trying to forget it to everyone, whether Black, white, Asian, whatever. We're feeding this narrative to everyone that Black people are constantly in a state of oppression. No, absolutely not. And they're like, well, we need to come together and we can change something. You can take 1 million oppressed Black activists, and I promise you that 1,000, 10,000 unoppressed individuals could handle that crew. To be unoppressed, to remove oppression from one's life is liberating. It's empowering, which makes me stronger than the oppressed individual. And I want us as a community to stop with this Olympics, stop praising our oppression. Let's figure out what's wrong. Let's find a way to fix it. Let's talk about our issues. Yeah, I know I may not be able to fix it on my own, but I am 3 degrees of separation from my answer. If I need help, I speak. And if I can help, I do. Right? I had one presenter. Funny. When I read the definition of oppression to her, she responded and told me, well, that definition was written by the oppressor. I said, okay. So what's the definition, right? Like, what are we saying right now? I just, another friend, not a friend, another presenter said, she was giving examples of her oppression Olympics. And she said that, I went to school And I had to drop out of school because I had a baby and the classes weren't great. I had to take care of the baby. So that was, oppression from the system. And in my head, I'm like, oh, okay. But who forced you to have that baby? Like not even who forced you to have that baby. Why are we having sex at 14? Like, where's that? Where's the accountability of that on us as a Black community, right? You shouldn't have had the baby at 14. Like, that's not what we do. We're not having sex at 14. And yeah, there are consequences to that. There are consequences to that. But we need to turn that into a restriction, right? And not oppression. I don't know. I feel that I have been liberated of this oppression. And I want to share this with everyone. I want everyone to feel what it's like to be unoppressed. It takes it's a spiritual thing, right? Because oppression from the system, it's this massive thing that none of us can handle. None of us can break through. So if the only thing that can break through something that big has to be supernatural, right? It has to be an alien. It has to be something. It has to be supernatural. And for me, that's where God comes in, yo. It's like, he broke it for me. He's like, you are no longer oppressed. Wake up, Jen. You are not oppressed. You are highly blessed. And stop singing that song with everybody because everybody's singing it. Like, ask yourself, are you oppressed? And yes, there are some who are. But ask yourself, what's my oppression? Or is it a restriction? And if you can't find an oppression, then stop co-signing with this mental fuckery that we keep doing. Stop telling yourself that you're oppressed. Because we're not. And they need to stop telling us that we are oppressed. I am not the only person out here who's not oppressed. I refuse to believe that. So, anyways, my thing is, I'm done playing the oppression Olympics. I bow out. I don't want a medal. I'm good on this. I am a loser when it comes to the oppression Olympics. Okay? Loser. Anyway, till next time, commercial breaks with Miss